Hello everyone, welcome on out for our eBay question and answer night. If you are with us, please comment in the chat so that I know someone's here. And also if you have any questions about using eBay, let us know now. What are you trying to find out about? We are up and running, waiting for your question. Few things I'll point out about eBay while we're sitting here waiting to see if we get any questions or anybody in here, because we'll leave the video up on the site too, is when you sign up, you don't want to sign up just for eBay. You're going to want to sign up for both eBay and PayPal. PayPal is how you pay and get paid with eBay. There are some other ways you could do some money transfers and things like that, but they aren't necessarily safe. PayPal is what you want to go with. So you do want to make an account with each of those. The eBay account is going to be pretty much instant. The PayPal you do have to tie a bank account to. That can take a little bit of time depending on your bank. Some of the larger national banks, they have a direct login. You can tie them instantly. If it's a smaller local bank and it doesn't have that option, you may have to wait until you see, they basically do a safety thing where they make 2 small deposits and then remove them. That way you can go and verify those amounts with PayPal and they know that it's your actual bank account. And so if you've got online banking, that should still only take a day or two. But if you're going and waiting for a statement to do that verification, it might be a couple weeks. That's something to keep in mind before you actually get set up, is that you're going to want to do both eBay and PayPal. Also, another thing to keep in mind when you're getting started is that there are what's known as a feedback score, essentially positive ratings from other members or potentially negatives. And if you have a 0 and a brand new account, people may be less likely to buy from you. So you want to go out and maybe actually buy a few things, have the account sit around for a little bit before you immediately go and start selling things. What I usually recommend to people is they're just starting out and they want to get some feedback on eBay. There's usually things over in this daily deals section. Some of it is junk and not really a deal. However, some of it is actually decent or at least very cheap. You'll find some things like basic phone cases, stuff like that that you could buy. A lot of shoes and clothing items end up in here too. There used to be a lot of gift cards, but I don't really see those anymore. But if you do catch a gift card, they can be a nice value because you might get 10% off the gift card, and it's somewhere that you're going to go and shop and eat at anyway. So you're getting, 10% savings or whatever, plus you're getting the feedback on eBay that you want before you get started selling. So you can see there's all different categories under this deals section. And you can just search from the main site too. I mean, you don't have to go to deals, but usually I find something in here that somebody would be interested in if they're starting up an account. I think there's a cordless pressure washer for $63. That seems like so depending on what you want, there's all different stuff in here to get your feedback. As I said feedback a few times, might as well hop to my eBay. And so you can see I have been on eBay for almost 20 years now, 20 years and 3 more months, pretty much since I turned 18. And you can see I've got 670 feedback because I've been doing this for a long time, both buying and selling. And get a breakdown of it here, the past 12 months essentially, how many positive, neutrals, and negatives. Luckily I've had all positives, 11 positive transactions over the last few months. Another thing to remember, and why I kind of recommend buying something, is that sellers will pretty much give you feedback instantly because they can't give you a negative. When you start selling things, buyers will usually not give you feedback at all, unfortunately. They buy the item, they want to sit on it for a little while to make sure it was, grabbed correctly and is what they wanted, and then they just don't log back onto eBay for a while and forget to ever leave that feedback. So it is a good idea to buy a couple of items if you're looking to get this feedback faster. As you can see, most of mine, something I bought. There's one thing I sold in the last year that I actually got feedback on, and everything else is something that I bought. Pretty rare, unfortunately. Now, once you are all set up, you're going to want to go and keep a few things in mind before you even start spending your time selling. The first being that normally on a transaction, and eBay can, sometimes give you a discount on this, but normally it's going to be a 10% fee that they take right off the top. And then PayPal, as the payment processor, takes like a 3 point something fee. So just keep in mind that with your item, after you mail it and ship it, you're going to want to have like a 15% buffer to make sure you're not losing. So if you sell something for $100 on here, including shipping, you can probably plan to get about 85 of that cash, backed out whatever your shipping cost is. Let's just say it's a medium mailer with the Postal Service, one of the smaller boxes. You're basically looking at $70 on that $100 sale. We got a question. How do you estimate postage if you're not sure how much an item weighs or the size weight of the shipping package? Well, that's the tough part, and probably the hardest thing about selling on eBay is shipping. Uh, you can, if you've got a bathroom scale, you can just kind of hop on it and get your own weight, hop back on with the item in your hands and get a rough estimate, depending on how much it weighs. If it's really oversized, you're probably going to be looking at freight if it's a very large item, which is going to be very expensive. You could go somewhere like the UPS store to kind of get an idea of packaging. But usually what I recommend is that you go and actually, get the item packaged and see what the dimensions and the weight are before you would even list it. And you can kind of get an idea if you just measure the item. Usually if you add about 2 inches on each side, well, 2 to 3 inches, because you're going to want to, depending on the fragility of it, put some bubble wrap around it and then some of the peanut packing peanuts or whatever. So you're going to need 2 to 3 inches in every dimension. And then you could look at somewhere like Staples where they sell boxes, see exactly what would be the closest size that you get. Another thing to keep in mind as you're shipping, if you're trying to cut down on costs, sometimes a box will be very, very tall. You can actually slice the sides of it down a bit and score the sides of the box. It takes a little bit of practice, but you can size down the box that way so it's not the full height. But you do want to get as close on the weight and dimensions as possible, and then you can go to the different websites to estimate. Now, if it's a smaller item, I highly recommend, as long as it's not a very low value item, the United States Postal Service prepaid priority boxes. The box is included, you don't have to pay anything for the box. Shipping is a flat rate, up to 70 pounds. The only downside is the small one is probably around the size of a VHS tape. The medium is a little bit smaller than a shoebox, and the large is a little bit bigger than a shoebox. And their prices are around 7 for the small, 13 for the medium, 17 for the large. So it can be a little tough to fit stuff into those, but if you can, they are very convenient. Also, if you have just small, low weight items, just that you can fit almost in like an envelope, I do a lot of bubble mailers for games and small items like and stuff like that are kind of low value that it's not worth insuring them all the time. I don't want to say I recommend not insuring your package, but I have sent probably 100 games at this point through eBay, and I have not lost any of them yet. And it would have cost an extra $2 or $3 on each of those to insure them. So, even if I did lose one $50 game, it wouldn't be worth the $300 I've saved at this point. It does, though, somewhat depend on the volume you're doing. But shipping really is the hardest part. Uh, Again, you can, if you at least have the dimensions of it and the weight, you can put that into listing itself, and that'll kind of give you estimates based on their zip code as well. So you can have calculated shipping. Uh, that can be another way to. Hopefully, I somewhat answered that, but shipping is by far the hardest part of all this. Do you have any other questions before I point out a few? Oh, no problem. Thank you for the question. Don't know if I got exactly the answer you were looking for, but hopefully at least a little bit more of an idea on how to go through. One last thing to mention with shipping is that if it's an eighth of an inch over, it goes to the next inch. So if you have something that's 16 and 1/8 inches, it's actually considered 17 inches. There's no partial inches with the Postal Service or FedEx or UPS. Once you get into that next inch, it's the next full inch. Uh, so usually you'll see common boxes that are like 12 by 12 by 12 or 16 cubes. Uh, they're actually going to be 13, 13, 13 on the measurements because 12 is the internal, and then you've got about an eighth to a quarter of an inch of cardboard on the outside. So if you're looking at that box, don't put it in as a 12, put it in as 13 all around. So before you sell anything, again, you're going to want to get it kind of packaged up, or at least an idea of what it would look like packaged up, so you have the sizes and an idea of what your shipping cost is going to be. And then your next step really is going to be to go out and search eBay for a similar item. So if I was looking for something, just for an example, I don't know, I'll look for just the first game that comes to mind for some reason. Not Doom. Tetris Effect. So, what most people are going to do when they're shopping on eBay is what I'm going to do right now, which is they're going to type in what they're looking for. They're going to go to buy it now, and they're going to go price plus shipping lowest first to find the absolute cheapest one, which is about $21. And they go up from there. And then as long as the person that is selling it has decent feedback, that's pretty much who they're going to buy it from. So if you're starting with zero feedback or just a couple feedback, you're usually going to want to be at least a couple of dollars less depending on the item. You're going to want to kind of undercut the other sellers. They also do have other options that you turn on when you're listing the item itself that are specific to that category. So here we have region codes for game stuff, and if you're not into games or TV technology, none of that probably means anything to you. But there's all this stuff here. They've got publisher, which some people have it incorrect, how it's rated, all this different stuff. And this will change by category, and you can change it based on what you're trying to sell. But in this case, I could probably ship this for about $3, and I know I'm going to have to pay that 15% on it, which is going to be about another $3. So if I wasn't going to be happy with getting only $15 of profit out of selling this game, or if I could sell it locally for more or trade it to a GameStop or whatever. That's kind of a good way to make your decision. Look at it, know how much it's going to cost to ship, know that you're going to take that 15% off the top, and then decide, is this item worth my time? Gotta sign in. Prove I'm not a robot. Cell phone number, ignore that. And here we have our selling. So let's just stick with that Tetris. And it has, after I type that in, suggested categories, and video games looks like the correct one, so we'll just stick with that. Uh, there are some things that they kind of got rid of or made free that they've brought back that cost extra money, and I don't recommend ever doing them. One is Subtitle. It's $1.50 whether the item sells or not. All of these cost the amount of money whether it sells or not, so you would be out that if it didn't sell. So there's $1.50 for Subtitles. There's a super size photo for $1, and there's one more thing of I can't find it right now. So try and stay away from any of the ones that are going to cost you extra money. They're not really worth it. Like we saw before, most people will type the name of it in, what they're looking for, sort by the lowest price, and find one with a decent seller and is the condition they're looking for it. So I could put this in here. If I had the UPC, I could put it in. It's also going to ask me the condition. It's not inside of the shrink wrap from the factory. It's not brand new. It could be like new, very good, acceptable. I'm going to go with like new. It would ask me to write a description. So I could say here, packaging was opened, played once, disc is in brand new condition. Down here you can add photos. They will allow you to add up to 12 photos. It used to only be like 2 or 3 that you could get for free. Now it's up to 12, which is very nice, especially with our camera phones and stuff today. We can just take a ton of pictures. And that's what I recommend doing. In fact, when I'm doing something for eBay, what I usually do is I'll go through this screen, do all the steps, and then all the way at the bottom, there's a save as draft, and there's an eBay app that you can get for your phone or tablet, and so that way you don't have to transfer pictures between computers or anything. But I like to, when I'm doing my description and all that, type everything out, and then I come back on my phone and I add the pictures right from my phone. It used to be a whole routine before they had the app where I would take pictures with either a camera or my phone, upload them to the computer, or email them to myself if it was from the phone, wait to get all that downloaded and transferred, and then put them back up here. The app really cuts a lot of those steps out to make life easier. Here we have some of those categories that I mentioned that you see on the left when you're doing a search. And then down here, we have our item description. And that's where you're going to put in the long form, not just, is it new, like new, whatever. You're going to actually talk about the item, what it includes, all of that. A little bit further down, we get into our formats, fixed price or auction style. Again, almost everything on here, I think it's into the high 80s or low 90s now, is a buy it now fixed price auction. Very rarely do you see stuff going auction style anymore. The last one I had was almost 3 years ago now when I used an auction, and that was for a hot item Christmas gift. So I let people get into bidding wars on that rather than trying to put some ridiculous price and see if I got it. Because I didn't know exactly where it would go, but I knew it would go pretty high. So unless you've got a really hot item, you don't want to use the auction style. But if you do, you get to pick the duration of it, the starting price. You could still put in a buy it now price, but then once people start bidding, the buy it now goes away. They also have what's known as a reserve price, which is essentially at X dollar amount bid is when you are actually required to sell it. That is optional. I do not recommend it. I would just make the starting price the lowest amount you would take for it. There's also a slightly newer offer called Best Offer, and with that, it allows people to make offers based on your item if you want to sell it any lower. I will say if you do this, you're going to see some extra options point. Turn on automatically decline. You will get people offering you, 10% of what your item is worth, and it's not worth dealing with all the emails and stuff you'll get from them. So automatically decline. Say we've got our $21 game and we know it's worth about 21 and that's what it's selling at. Anybody under, not 28, let's say 18, we just automatically deny them. But then if it's not selling, these offers, you get 24 to 48 hours to reply to. You could leave it there and see if somebody buys it at full price, or you could take their offer. There is also an option for quantity if you have multiple. Private listing, which I've never really bothered with. Donation, since I was kind of overselling that item I talked about 3 Christmases ago, I sent a chunk of it to one of my favorite charities. So you can do that if you wanted to. I think I sent like 20 or 30%. So I went with Child's Play because it was a gaming system. And your PayPal, I don't know why, as a check mark when PayPal is the only option, but it does. And this last one I would also check, require immediate payment with Buy It Now. What that means is when they go through the auction has not closed until they've actually gone through and paid you. Otherwise, if you don't have that checked, the person can sit on the auction for 7 days and never pay for it, go around looking for a better price or debate if they really wanted it, and meanwhile you're missing out on somebody who may have actually wanted to buy it. So if you require immediate payment with Buy It Now, definitely recommended. They have to pay for it before they can actually complete the auction or complete the purchase. Sales tax, if you were a business, you could put this in here. However, I think there's federal laws now where they just have to charge sales tax on the other end anyway, so you don't really have to worry too much about that. There's also options for what kinds of returns you'll accept or if you won't do any. Down here, there's your shipping options, which are a flat cost. If you were going to do free shipping, just build it into the cost of your item. Calculated, and then no shipping, local pickup only if you had a very large item. As far as calculated goes, it's going to ask you for all those things I mentioned before, the dimensions down here, the weight, all of that. And then what it'll do is based on the person who's buying it, eBay knows their zip code and they know your zip code, so they look at how much it would cost to go there. That being said, it does not include things like insurance in that estimate. So if you're selling something for $300, your shipping cost might actually be about $5 more than what eBay's estimator does. I will say though that this estimator used to be really bad, and now it is pretty accurate, if not right on the dot at this point. The only thing is the insurance and extra fees. So if you were going to add insurance and you knew about how much that cost, say like $1.25 from UPS for $300, maybe you just add hit the wrong keyboard, $4 in your handling cost, and then that'll cover your insurance for you. You can also create exclusions for shipping locations. So if this is a large item that's going to have to go UPS ground or FedEx, it won't fit in one of those flat rate postal service boxes. You can ban things like Alaska, Hawaii, the U.S. protectorates, like Guam and Puerto Rico, APO, FPOs, that sort of stuff. And then that way it will only ship by ground to where it has to go. That being said, if you do have something and it will fit in one of those USPS boxes and it's got to go to any of those are by far your best way to get it because it's always a flat rate, whether it's going an hour away if you're sending something, to Bloomsburg, or if you're sending it to Hawaii or Alaska, it's that same $7, $13, $17. So if it is a smaller item, this is going to be the best way to get it there. You want it to have tracking and insurance and speed. So then once you get to the end and you've done all your options, you could hit list item or save as draft. And like I said, I'll usually do a save as draft on this, and then I go into my phone and I finish it later. I'm going to cancel out of that. I haven't sold anything lately. But let's see. I do have an unsold item. It was something I bought by mistake, not realizing it was in Japanese, and ended up being able to return it to them. The buyer was nice, but I did have it listed trying to sell it myself first before I realized what that was. But under my eBay, which is also up here, and then you can just go to selling, you'll find all of your details. And then all of your details also for if you were buying things, you can watch things. And in case you were wondering if you're planning to do a lot of this, they give you about 200 items that you list for free, but then you have to pay that 10% at the end. So they will let you list quite a bit. The problem is you still have to pay that 10%. But it's nice that you can list for free and not have to pay anything if it doesn't sell. So this one, I canceled it and returned it. I didn't have to spend any of my actual money on it. Have any other questions? Give it a minute and see if we get any questions. Then I'll continue on with some other services that I do recommend outside of eBay, depending on the item you're selling. Alright, I'm not hearing any other questions, so I'm just going to point out a few other services that I know exist online as places to sell at. We won't go into as much detail as we did eBay, but we will go in and kind of take a peek at them. I'll just take a look at PayPal real quick. PayPal, it'll go through and it'll show you if you have a balance, your activity. You can add different banks and cards to it. I'm not going to spend too much time there. Some other things. eBay is pretty good for modern consumer items that are, mass produced like that. It can be good for some older items. I remember somebody in the past that I know selling like Milano glass vases. Thought they didn't realize that they were actually real vintage Milano. Sorry, I don't know much about the glass crafting in Italy or whatever it was. But it ended up they bought them pretty cheaply and they were worth a couple $1,000s. So they went through and sold them all on eBay. But usually you're going to be looking at kind of mass produced stuff on eBay. Now, if you're looking to get into handmade and vintage goods, another site that you might want to consider is called Etsy. Etsy deals with what I just said, handmade vintage goods. This is where I've bought most of my masks, as we're masking up all the time. I've bought a bunch of them on here. Uh, just handmade goods, personalized gifts. You can see all the different stuff here. And then they also deal with some vintage, older stuff that's been used but is in good condition. That's Etsy, where again, vintage and handcrafted. Swappa, one that I've found that I've had better luck with selling on for my higher end electronics like old phones and things when we upgrade. The reason for that is that eBay is kind of inundated with them and anybody can list it, and a lot of times they're ones that were stolen and won't actually activate, and you have to read through the descriptions of a bunch to find one that's actually credible. With this company, their listing is a little bit more involved. They have a little bit more of a selection process as far as what they put on the site. When I've sold with them, I have to actually go through and take a picture of my phone with a little written note of the listing number they gave me for it before they'll approve it. But that being said, all of that was worth it. On the couple of phones I've sold on here, I've cashed out at $30 to $50 higher than I would have if I went through eBay. And I didn't have, you basically just put it up and people will either buy it or they won't. There's not really quite as much haggling and stuff as people seem to like to do with the buy it nows on eBay. And again, felt the fees were a lot better. They actually load the fees into the selling price of the auction. You kind of set your low price, and then they add, depending on the value of the item, like $5 to $20, and that's actually built into the listing. So if you say I'm selling this and I want $300 out of it, they just put it on their site for 315, and then you get the 300. You don't have to play with any 10% fees on it, and you just have to pay the shipping out of it, which you'd have to do with eBay anyway. So I found these to make out much better, but again, it's super limited. You've got phones or iPhones, phones, laptops, watches, and tablets. So not a huge array of stuff on here, and also some gaming systems. So not a whole lot of variety with Swappa. And the last one I will show you, if I can, got the name of it, is Poshmark. One I haven't used much myself, but my wife has, and she really likes it. It's a online place to sell your clothes that are in decent condition if you no longer want them. And what's really great about this is that they kind of take all the guesswork out of it for those items. They give you a shipping label, it's good to go. You just package it and send it out in either a bubble mailer or a small box, depending on if it's like a dress or shoes or whatever. So this website I found to be very good for that kind of stuff. Uh, Again, no guesswork. They tell you, hey, here's if you listed it this, you're going to get X amount of dollars from it. We give you the label, and there's nothing else to deal with. Also nice that you're getting their discount as a massive shipper instead of trying to ship it on your own. There we have it. eBay, kind of all consumer goods, kind of a catch-all. Etsy, vintage and handmade goods. Swappa, very specifically high-end electronics like cell phones, tablets, and gaming systems. And finally, Poshmark. Those are probably the big four. I know there's hundreds of sale sites out there. You can sell on Amazon, but unless you're doing a decent enough volume, that's probably not worth it. Uh, that's about all I have. I'm going to open it up to questions again for a little while. And if I don't get any questions in the next 15 minutes, I'll call it quits. And I'm going to turn my mic off and question so I can run the air conditioner. All right, looks like we don't have any more questions, so we are going to wrap this up right here. Hopefully, learned something. If you're watching this after the fact, you can always write in questions to us through Facebook Messenger or call the computer lab. It's the library's phone number, extension 3038. You can also email the computer lab at complab@albright.org. And keep an eye on our other Facebook events. We'll be doing this again in about 2 weeks, as well as other classes and open labs. Hope everybody has a good night.